June 3rd, 2012, Winter County, Utah. The coordinates put us at 40°1530 N, 109°5322 W, a patch of high desert scrubland that shouldn't matter to anyone. But it did matter. It mattered enough that the Army Chemical Corps sent a specialized survey team into terrain that made every sensor we had scream contradictions. I was 34 years old, a chief warrant officer with 12 years in CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense. I'd sniffed out sarin gas in Syrian bunkers, tracked radiological dispersal devices in Kandahar, and analyzed nerve agent residue in places the State Department swore we'd never been. This was different. The briefing came through Fort Leonard Wood on a Tuesday morning, highly compartmented. He laid out satellite telemetry data, ground-penetrating radar sweeps, and environmental sampling reports that made no goddamn sense. "We have a property in northeastern Utah," he said, pulling up a satellite image. Approximately 512 acres, privately owned but currently under federal monitoring agreement. For the past 18 months, our remote sensors have been recording anomalous readings that fall outside established parameters for natural phenomena. He clicked through slides. Temperature variations of 60 degrees Fahrenheit occurring instantaneously across a 100-meter radius. Gamma radiation spikes with no identifiable source, appearing and disappearing within seconds. Soil chemistry alterations that suggested industrial contamination, except the contamination changed composition between samplings, sometimes heavy metals, sometimes organic compounds, sometimes substances that our spectroscopy couldn't identify. "Previous investigation?" I asked. The colonel's jaw tightened. 3. First was civilian contractors, 2 PhD geologists, and an environmental engineer. They lasted 4 days, filed contradictory reports, and refused to return. Second was a USGS team. They made it 6 days before requesting immediate extraction due to equipment failure. Third was an Air Force scientific advisory group. They completed a 2-week survey and concluded, he paused, choosing words carefully, that the site required specialized CBRN assessment. "And now us," said Captain Sarah Reeves, my second in command. She was from Fort Detrick, Maryland, a biochemist who'd spent 3 years tracking biological warfare agents and had a doctorate in environmental toxicology. If something in the soil or air could kill you, Reeves could identify it. "And now you," the colonel confirmed. "Your team will conduct a comprehensive environmental survey. Full CBRN protocol. You'll establish a base camp, deploy sensor arrays, collect samples, and maintain continuous monitoring for 30 days. All findings are classified TS-SCI and will be reported directly through my office." Our team was 7 strong. Besides Reeves and myself, Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Kessler, we had Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, a veteran nuclear, biological, and chemical specialist who'd done 3 tours in Iraq hunting WMDs that mostly didn't exist. Sergeant First Class Jennifer Ortega was our environmental sampling technician, trained in field chemistry and hazmat operations. Specialist David Chen handled our radiological equipment, dosimeters, scintillation counters, gamma spectroscopy gear. Private First Class Amy Washington was our youngest, 22, a meteorology specialist who could read weather patterns like tarot cards. And then there was Sergeant Travis Holbrook, our senior equipment operator, a quiet Montana kid who could fix anything with duct tape and determination. We flew into Salt Lake City on June 8th. Commercial flights, civilian clothes, equipment shipped separately through channels that didn't officially exist. 2 rental SUVs took us northeast, through increasingly empty landscape, past Heber City, past Roosevelt, into the Uinta Basin where the towns got smaller and the spaces between them got larger. The land was beautiful in that stark western way. Sagebrush and juniper, red rock formations, sky so blue it hurt. We reached the property at dusk, a ranch technically, though I saw no cattle, just a long gravel road leading to a cluster of buildings, a main house, several outbuildings, and a barn that looked like it had been standing since the 1940s. A man was waiting for us at the gate, late 60s, weathered face, flannel shirt, and the kind of posture that suggested he'd spent his life working with his hands. "Mr. Ballard," I said, extending my hand. "I'm Chief Kessler. We spoke on the phone." He shook my hand without enthusiasm. You're the fourth group, he said. The fourth group the government sent to figure out what's wrong with my land. We're here to help identify. You're here because something's happening that your instruments can measure but you can't explain, Ballard interrupted. I've heard the speeches. The geologists said it was subsurface geological activity. The USGS said it was unusual but within natural parameters. The Air Force people wouldn't tell me anything at all. So which lie are you going to tell me? I respected his directness. Mr. Ballard, I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know what's happening here, but I'm going to find out. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. You can use the barn for your equipment. Stay out of the southeast pasture. That's where it's worst. And, Chief? He looked me in the eye. Whatever you find out there, don't go looking for it at night. We established base camp in and around the barn. It was solid construction, good shelter, with electricity and running water. Webb and Holbrook set up our mobile lab, a climate-controlled trailer packed with analytical equipment. Chen deployed the radiological sensors in a grid pattern extending 200 meters from the barn. Ortega began baseline soil and water sampling. Washington set up weather monitoring stations to track temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and wind patterns. Reeves and I walked the property perimeter before dark, getting a feel for the terrain. The ranch was situated in a shallow basin, ringed by low hills covered in juniper and oak brush. The soil was alkaline, typical for the region. A seasonal creek ran along the western boundary, dry now in early summer. And in the southeast corner, the area Ballard had warned us about, there was a section of roughly 50 acres that felt different. You feel that? Reeves asked as we approached. I did. A pressure. Like walking into a room where an argument has just ended, the emotional residue hanging in the air. The vegetation was sparser here. Several fence posts were bent at impossible angles. The metal twisted like someone had grabbed them and wrenched them sideways with superhuman strength. The ground showed patches where nothing grew, perfect circles of bare earth ranging from 2 to 10 meters in diameter. What could do that to steel fence posts? Reeves wondered, running her hand near one of the twisted posts without touching it. Industrial equipment, I suggested. Hydraulic press. Maybe. In the middle of nowhere? With no tracks, no signs of vehicles? She pulled out a thermal camera and scanned the area. Temperatures normal, no residual heat signatures. But my dosimeter was clicking, not alarmingly, but consistently. Elevated background radiation, maybe twice the normal level for the region. Helpful advice, deeply unsettling advice. The first night was quiet. We established a watch rotation, 2 people awake at all times, monitoring the sensor feeds. I took the 2200 to midnight shift with Washington. She sat at the laptop, tracking the data streams from our weather stations, while I monitored the CBRN sensors. Everything was normal until 23:47 hours. Washington saw it first. Chief, look at this. She pointed to the temperature readout. The sensor in the southeast pasture, the one closest to the twisted fence posts, was showing a temperature drop. 72 degrees Fahrenheit at 23:46, 68 degrees at 23:47, 59 degrees at 23:48. Sensor malfunction, I suggested. All 5 sensors in that sector are showing the same drop, Washington said. Her voice was steady, professional, but I heard the uncertainty underneath. And it's localized. Sensors to the north and west are still reading normal. I pulled up the thermal satellite feed we were piggybacking from NRO. It took 30 seconds to refresh, but when it did, I saw it. A cold spot in the southeast pasture. Dark blue on the thermal map, maybe 15 degrees cooler than the surrounding area. And it was growing. Chen, I called across the barn. He was supposed to be sleeping, but sat up immediately. Check the rad sensors. Tell me what you're seeing in Sector 7. He pulled out his tablet, swiped through screens. Gamma radiation is elevated. Not dangerous levels, but... Chief, it's fluctuating. Up and down, like a pulse. every 30 seconds. I looked at Washington. How cold is it now? 41 degrees. It's dropped 31 degrees in 4 minutes. That wasn't possible. Not without active cooling equipment. Not without some mechanism to remove that much thermal energy from the environment. I stood up, grabbed my M4, old habits from downrange, and moved to the barn door. Chief? Reeves was awake now. Everyone was awake, drawn by the quiet urgency in our voices. Something's happening in the southeast pasture, I said. Temperatures dropping impossibly fast. Radiation spiking. I'm going to take a look. Not alone, Reeves said firmly. Webb, you're with us. Chen, keep monitoring. If anything changes, you call us immediately. We geared up. MOP suits. The lightweight ones designed for chemical environments. Not because I expected chemical exposure, but because I wanted that extra layer between us and whatever was out there. Dosimeters clipped to our vests, PVS-14 night vision monoculars, and weapons. Because in my experience, when something doesn't make sense, it's better to have a rifle and not need it than the reverse. The walk to the southeast pasture took 8 minutes. The night was clear, stars brilliant in the desert sky, no moon. My NVG turned the world into green-gray shadows. The temperature was dropping as we walked. I could feel it even through the MOP suit. My breath started fogging around 50 meters from the fence line, and then I heard it. A hum. Low frequency, subsonic, more felt than heard. It vibrated in my chest, made my back teeth ache, sent pins and needles down my spine. The same sensation I'd felt once before, standing too close to a helicopter's rotors at idle. But there was no helicopter, no machinery, no source. You hearing this? Webb asked. Feeling it, Reeves corrected. Infrasound, below 20 hertz, can cause disorientation, anxiety, feeling of presence, and also can't exist without a source, I said. What's generating it? We reached the fence line. The temperature, according to Washington's radio check, was now 34 degrees Fahrenheit. A 60-degree drop in less than 15 minutes. The grass was crystallizing with frost. Our breath came out in thick clouds, and in the center of the largest bare patch of earth, something was happening. The air was wrong, distorted, like heat shimmer, but inverted, a cold shimmer, a rippling of space that made my eyes water when I tried to focus on it. The distortion was roughly 10 meters across, and at its center, the ground was glowing. Not with light, exactly. With an absence of light. A darkness that was somehow visible, that drew the eye and refused to let go. My dosimeter was clicking faster now. Not dangerous yet, but elevated. 15 millisieverts per hour. 20. 25. We need to back up, I said. Now. But Reeves was moving forward, her detector out, scanning. Chief, the spectrometry is showing. I don't know what it's showing. The air composition is changing. Nitrogen's dropping. Oxygen's spiking. And there's something else. She adjusted her instruments. There's an element here that's not registering. The molecular weight is wrong. It's like nothing in the database. Reeves, step back, I ordered. She took one more step forward, and the hum peaked, a physical pressure that drove me to my knees. Webb was down too, hands over his ears even though that wouldn't help. Wouldn't block sound you felt in your bones. Only Reeves was still standing, her detector pointed at the distortion, her face visible through her mask showing not fear, but fascination. And then the distortion moved. Not toward us, not away. It just moved, shifted position maybe 20 meters east in an instant. No transition, no passage through the intervening space. One moment it was there, the next it was there, and my brain couldn't process how it had crossed that distance. The temperature spiked, 34 degrees to 98 degrees in seconds. The frost evaporated explosively, turning to steam. My mop suit's internal temperature alarm started screaming. "Fall back!" I shouted, grabbing Reeves by the shoulder, pulling her away. We ran, No dignity, no tactical discipline, just ran back toward the barn, while behind us the temperature continued to spike and the radiation levels climbed, and that hum became a shriek that wasn't sound, but something else. Something that bypassed my ears and went straight into my skull. We made it back to the barn at 00:12 hours. The southeast pasture sensors showed the temperature had peaked at 143 degrees Fahrenheit, then crashed back to normal within 90 seconds. The radiation had spiked to 80 millisieverts per hour, enough to make you sick if you stayed long enough, then dropped to background levels. We sat in the barn, breathing hard, trying to process what we'd just witnessed. Chen showed us the data logs, perfect spikes, perfect drops. Temperature, radiation, even barometric pressure had fluctuated wildly. The graphs looked like EKG readouts from a heart attack. What the hell was that? Webb asked. Nobody had an answer. We didn't sleep that night. Just sat and watched the monitors, waiting for it to happen again. At 0347 hours, it did. Different location, western sector this time. Same pattern. Temperature drop, radiation spike, that subsonic hum. It lasted 11 minutes, then vanished. At 0521 hours, northern sector. 8 minutes. At 0638 hours, back to the southeast pasture. 14 minutes. By dawn, we'd logged 6 separate events across 4 different locations, and I had no idea what I was going to put in my report. Day 2 began with a team meeting. Everyone looked exhausted despite the sunrise. Holbrook had coffee brewing, strong military coffee that could strip paint. We gathered around the monitors, and I laid out what we knew, which wasn't much. We're experiencing localized and rapid temperature fluctuations, radiation anomalies, and infrasound generation from no identifiable source, I said. The events appear to follow a pattern. They're occurring roughly every 90 minutes, lasting between 8 and 15 minutes each, and moving between 4 primary locations on the property. Could it be underground? Ortega suggested. Geothermal activity may be radioactive mineral deposits that are interacting with groundwater. Geothermal doesn't move, Reeves countered. And it doesn't explain the instantaneous temperature changes or the molecular anomalies I detected. Whatever I was reading last night, it wasn't in our element database. Could be equipment error, Webb offered, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. All our equipment? I asked. Temperature sensors, radiation detectors, spectroscopy gear, barometric sensors, all experiencing the same systematic errors at the same time? Silence. We need more data, I decided. We're going to instrument the hell out of this place. Chen, I want radiation sensors every 20 meters in a complete grid. Already on it, she said. We spent day 2 building our sensor network. By nightfall, we had 47 monitoring stations deployed across the property, all feeding data back to our central lab. High-definition cameras with night vision and thermal imaging, seismographs to detect ground vibrations, magnetometers to measure any electromagnetic fluctuations. If anything happened on Ballard's property, we were going to record it. Mr. Ballard watched us work from a distance. Around noon, he approached me as I was installing a camera mount. Finding anything? He asked. Sir, I can't discuss active investigations. I've owned this land for 42 years, he interrupted. Raised cattle here, raised a family here. And for 41 of those years, it was just land. Normal land. Then, 18 months ago, things started changing. Cattle getting spooked for no reason. Fence posts bending like they were made of clay. Cold spots that appeared overnight. Strange lights in the pastures. He paused. My grandson won't visit anymore. Says the place feels wrong. And you know what? He's right. I chose my words carefully. We're documenting environmental anomalies. Once we understand the source, we can make recommendations. You think you can fix it? I think we can understand it. Ballard shook his head slowly. There are some things, Chief Kessler, that aren't meant to be understood. The Utes who lived here before us, they had stories about this land. Called it a place where the boundaries were thin, where things could come through. He looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. I used to think that was just superstition. I don't anymore. That night, the events intensified. The first manifestation occurred at 2143 hours southeast pasture, exactly as predicted. Our cameras captured it perfectly. The air distortion, the temperature drop, the darkness that wasn't quite darkness. But they captured something else too. Movement. At the edge of the thermal imaging frame, something passed through the cold zone. It registered on thermal as neither hot nor cold. It was the same temperature as its surroundings, perfectly camouflaged. But it had a shape, vaguely humanoid, roughly 8 feet tall, and it moved with purpose, circling the distortion like it was inspecting it. "Are you seeing this?" Washington breathed beside me. I was seeing it, and I didn't believe it. Because our radar showed nothing. Our motion sensors showed nothing. Only the thermal camera, and only because the thing was blocking the ambient heat signature of the ground behind it. It circled once, twice, 3 times. Then it moved toward our camera position, not walking, but gliding, no visible means of locomotion. It reached the camera, and for one impossible moment, I saw what might have been a face. No features I could identify, just the suggestion of something looking back at me through the lens. Then static. The camera went dead. Just dead. No fade, no interference pattern. One moment clear image, the next black screen. "Equipment failure?" Webb suggested hopefully. "No," Holbrook said. He was already checking diagnostics. "The camera's completely fried. Not the connection, not the power supply, the camera itself. Every circuit board is burned out." "How?" I asked. "I don't know. It's like it was hit with a massive electromagnetic pulse, but our EMP sensors didn't register anything." The second manifestation occurred at 0015 hours, Western Sector. This time we were ready. 3 cameras, multiple angles, redundant systems. We watched it form. The air distortion appearing like a wound in space, the temperature plunging 60 degrees in 90 seconds, the radiation spiking, and that hum building to a pressure that made our ears pop even 100 meters away. And this time, 2 figures appeared on thermal. 8 feet tall, perfectly temperature neutral, moving through the cold zone with deliberate purpose. They seemed to be doing something, manipulating the distortion, or interacting with it, or... I had no frame of reference for what I was watching. Reeves was recording everything, her hands steady despite what we were seeing. "The spectroscopy is showing that element again," she said quietly. "The unknown one. It appears during the manifestations and disappears after. Like it's only present when whatever this is active." "Are you suggesting the manifestations are bringing in foreign material?" I asked. "I'm suggesting the manifestations are the foreign material," she replied. "Or made of it. Or..." "Chief, I have no idea what I'm suggesting because this doesn't fit any model I know." The figures moved closer to our camera positions. Not toward the barn. They seemed uninterested in us, but toward our monitoring equipment. One by one, our sensors began to fail. Cameras went dark. Radiation detectors stopped transmitting. Temperature sensors flatlined. "They're destroying our equipment," Chen said. "Systematically." "Or maybe the phenomenon itself is doing it," Ortega countered. "Maybe the equipment can't handle the environmental conditions." But I watched on the remaining thermal feed as one of the figures reached out, if that was the right word, and touched a sensor array. The array simply disintegrated, not melted, not broken. It came apart at the molecular level, falling to dust in seconds. Then that camera went dark too. By 0200 hours, we'd lost 60% of our sensor network. The manifestations were occurring every 45 minutes now, sometimes overlapping, multiple locations simultaneously. Our remaining cameras showed more figures, 5, then 7, then too many to count, all moving through the property like they were searching for something, or securing something. Day 3 was chaos. We spent the morning trying to repair equipment, replace sensors, understand the failure patterns. Every piece of destroyed gear showed the same characteristics. Complete molecular disruption, as if something had simply convinced the atoms to stop being whatever they had been and become something else. "This is beyond our mission scope," Webb said. He wasn't wrong. We'd been sent to conduct environmental monitoring, not deal with whatever this was. "We should recommend evacuation, further study by specialists." "Specialists in what?" I asked. "What do we put in the report? Send someone who understands reality warping phenomena and figures that disintegrate equipment by touching it." But Webb had a point. This was beyond our training, beyond our equipment, beyond anything that conventional CBRN protocols could address. That afternoon, something changed. Washington was conducting atmospheric readings near the southeast pasture. Daytime readings, supposedly safe, when she suddenly stopped moving. Just froze, her instruments hanging loose in her hands, staring at nothing. "Washington," I called from 50 meters away. No response. I ran toward her. She didn't react to my approach, didn't acknowledge my voice. Her eyes were open but unfocused, and she was whispering something under her breath. I reached her, grabbed her shoulders. "Private, respond." She blinked, focused on me, and for a moment I saw absolute terror in her eyes. Then awareness returned. "Chief? What? How long was I?" "Maybe 30 seconds. What happened?" "I don't know. I was taking readings and then I was somewhere else. Not physically, in my head. Like a memory, but not mine. I saw..." She struggled for words. "I saw this place, but different, empty. No ranch, no buildings. And there were things moving through the air like fish through water. And I understood." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I understood that this place has always been like this. We're the anomaly, Chief. Not them. Us." I got her back to the barn immediately. "Kowalski, sorry, we didn't have a Kowalski, that was Venezuela. I meant Ortega." Ortega checked her vitals. Elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, but otherwise normal. But Washington's 1,000-yard stare told a different story. That's when I decided we needed to leave. Whatever was happening on Ballard's property, it had escalated beyond environmental monitoring into something that could directly affect cognitive function. The safety of my team took priority over any data collection. I called the colonel on the satellite phone. The conversation was brief. "We need extraction," I said. "The phenomena has evolved beyond CBRN parameters. We're experiencing direct neurological effects and systematic equipment failure. Recommend full evacuation and site quarantine." Long silence. Then, "Denied. You have 27 days remaining in your survey period. Complete your mission." "Sir, with respect, we're not equipped. Figure it out, Chief. That's why we sent you." He disconnected. I stared at the dead phone in my hand, processing what I'd just heard. We were staying. Whether it was safe or not, whether our equipment worked or not, whether our minds remained intact or not, we were staying. That night, nobody wanted to sleep. We sat in the barn, all 7 of us, weapons within reach, even though we knew bullets wouldn't help, watching our dwindling sensor feeds and waiting for the next manifestation. It came at 2207 hours, southeast pasture again, but different this time, bigger. The temperature drop was so extreme that our remaining sensors couldn't accurately measure it. They just showed error codes when the reading went below 0 Fahrenheit. The radiation spiked to levels that made my dosimeter scream. And the distortion was enormous, maybe 50 meters across. A wound in reality so vast I could see it with the naked eye even from the barn. And through that wound, shapes were emerging. Not the figures we'd seen on thermal, larger things. Masses that defied geometry, that hurt to look at because my brain couldn't process their dimensions. They weren't moving through 3-dimensional space. They were moving through more dimensions than that, and I was only seeing the parts that intersected with normal reality. "What is that?" Chen whispered. "Chen, I think," Reeves said slowly, "that we're seeing something from somewhere else. Another place. Another, I don't even know what to call it. Another configuration of physics. Another dimension? Webb asked. Dimension is just a word for a direction we can't normally perceive. If there are more directions than the three we know, she trailed off, unable or unwilling to complete the thought. The things, I had no better word for them, moved across the pasture in ways that made my eyes water. Sometimes they seemed solid, sometimes transparent. Sometimes they occupied multiple locations simultaneously. They appeared to be doing something to the land itself, altering it, reshaping it, making it more like wherever they came from. And then one of them turned toward the barn. I felt it looking at us, not with eyes. It didn't have eyes in any conventional sense, but with awareness, intelligence. It knew we were here. It noticed us the way you might notice ants on a sidewalk. Insignificant, but present. The thing began moving toward us, not quickly, but with terrible inevitability. The ground beneath it didn't just change temperature or radiation, it changed fundamentally. Grass turned to something else, something that wasn't vegetation, but also wasn't mineral. The soil rippled like liquid but maintained its shape. We grabbed what we could, weapons, emergency gear, critical data drives, and ran for the vehicles. Behind us, the barn's metal roof began to twist, bending into impossible shapes just like the fence posts. The wood siding rippled and flowed. We piled into the SUVs and drove, fast, down the gravel road toward the property gate, headlights cutting through the darkness. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw the barn, changing, dissolving, becoming something else. We reached the gate and kept going. Didn't stop until we were 5 miles away, parked at a closed gas station on the highway, every light in both vehicles on, 7 soldiers sitting in silence trying to process what we'd just fled from. My phone rang. The colonel. Chief Kessler, explain why I'm showing your vehicles off property. Sir, we experienced an escalation event. The phenomena manifested with significantly greater intensity. For the safety of the team, you abandoned your post, sir. The phenomena was directly threatening our position. We executed a tactical withdrawal to reassess. You will return to the property immediately and complete your mission. That's an order. I looked at my team. Washington, still shaken from her episode. Chen, hands trembling. Ortega, professional facade cracking. Even Webb, the veteran, looked rattled. And Reeves, brilliant Reeves, staring at nothing while her analytical mind tried and failed to fit what we'd seen into any rational framework. Sir, I said carefully, I'm recommending mission abort. The phenomena poses a direct threat to personnel safety and exceeds the parameters of CBRN assessment. This isn't a combat zone, sir. It is now. You have 1 hour to return. Colonel out. He disconnected. I sat there, phone in hand, facing the impossible choice between my duty and my responsibility to keep my team alive. Chief? Reeves asked quietly. What do we do? I thought about Ballard's warning, about the Ute stories, about boundaries wearing thin. I thought about Washington's vision of this place as it really was. Not a ranch, not human territory, but something else entirely. A place we never should have been. We're not going back, I said. Webb looked at me. Chief, that's... I know what it is, I interrupted. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm refusing a direct order because that order will get people killed. If there's going to be a court-martial, I'll face it alone. The rest of you were following my leadership. But I'm not sending this team back into that. I pulled out my laptop, started typing the report that would probably end my career. Detailed everything we'd observed, everything we'd measured, every impossible thing that had no explanation. Attached every data file, every video, every reading. Made it clear that the property was not safe for human presence and required immediate quarantine by personnel with capabilities beyond conventional CBRN. I sent the report at 0237 hours and waited for the consequences. They came at dawn. Not military police like I expected. Civilian vehicles. Government plates but no agency markings. Men in suits who were too calm, too professional, too familiar with situations that shouldn't exist. They confiscated everything. Our equipment, our data drives, our personal phones and laptops. Every notebook, every sample, every scrap of documentation. They were thorough, methodical, and utterly silent about their authority or purpose. One of them, senior guy, gray hair, eyes that had seen things, pulled me aside. "Chief Kessler, you and your team are being transferred to a medical facility for evaluation and debriefing. This will take approximately 2 weeks. During that time, you will have no outside contact. After that, you'll be returned to your duty stations with new orders. The Ballard property investigation is concluded." "What about our report?" I asked. "What report?" He didn't smile. Wasn't hostile. Just stated a fact. There was no report. There never had been. "What's really going on at that ranch?" I demanded. He looked at me for a long moment, deciding something. Then, "Chief, how much do you know about the Air Force's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program?" "Nothing, sir." "Good. Keep it that way. What I can tell you is that the Ballard property is one of several locations worldwide where the normal rules don't apply, where reality is thinner, more permeable. We don't fully understand it. We can barely measure it. But we know it's been happening for a very long time, and we know that excessive investigation tends to make it worse. So you just monitor it, contain it? We try. Sometimes we succeed. Sometimes we learn hard lessons about the limits of human understanding." He handed me a card, blank except for a phone number. "If you or your team start experiencing lasting effects, memory problems, dissociative episodes, perception distortions, call this number." The medical facility was exactly what you'd expect from a government program that didn't officially exist. Clean, modern, isolated. We underwent every test imaginable. MRI, EEG, psychological evaluations, neurological exams. They were looking for damage, or contamination, or proof that we'd been exposed to something that changed us at a fundamental level. They found something in Washington. Her EEG showed unusual patterns, synchronous firing across regions that shouldn't synchronize, like her brain was organizing itself differently. The doctors assured her it wasn't harmful, but their eyes said they had no idea if that was true. After 2 weeks, we were released. Separately, different duty stations. I was transferred to Fort Detrick to teach CBRN procedures to new specialists. A desk job, safely away from field operations. I never saw Reeves, Webb, Ortega, Chen, Holbrook, or Washington again. When I tried to contact them through official channels, I was told they'd been reassigned to classified programs and were unavailable. My service record was clean. Too clean. The Utah deployment didn't exist. I'd spent June and July 2012 at Fort Leonard Wood for continuing education. The orders said so. The paperwork said so. My DD-214 would eventually say so. But my memories said otherwise. I stayed in another 5 years, teaching, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it all, trying to explain away the impossible things I'd seen. Maybe it was mass hallucination. Maybe there was a gas leak, some hallucinogenic compound in the soil. Maybe our equipment had malfunctioned and we'd interpreted random data as patterns. Maybe. But then I started noticing things. Articles about the Ballard property being purchased by a shell corporation. Reports of a 5-mile exclusion zone around certain coordinates in Utah. Satellite imagery of the area that was always corrupted, always redacted, always unavailable. And stories. Whispered stories from other CBRN specialists, other survey teams. A team that had gone into the Nevada test site and seen things moving between dimensions. A Navy environmental unit that had investigated anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle and come back with 3 fewer people than they'd started with. An Air Force Chemical Corps assessment team that had surveyed an abandoned Cold War facility in Alaska and reported entities that existed in the spaces between atoms. We weren't the first. We weren't the last. We were just one team in a long line of people who'd been sent to investigate phenomena that had no explanation, only documentation. Sent to measure the unmeasurable and report on the impossible. I retired in 2017, moved to Vermont, bought a small house, tried to live a quiet life, tried to forget, but I can't forget. Because sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I see them, the figures, 8 feet tall, temperature neutral, existing in more dimensions than 3. They're at the edge of my vision, in my peripheral awareness. Never close enough to be certain. Never far enough to feel safe. Washington calls the number she was given, the blank card number. She calls it once a month, talks to someone for 15 minutes, gets reassured that her symptoms are stable. She told me this before we lost contact, before she was reassigned. She said the voice on the phone knew exactly what she was experiencing because dozens of others were experiencing the same thing. We'd been exposed, not to radiation or chemicals or biological agents, to something worse, to a reality that wasn't ours. And once you've seen it, once you've touched it, it doesn't quite let go. The ranch is still there, the Ballard property. Mr. Ballard sold it to the government in 2013, or rather, he accepted a very generous offer he technically had the right to refuse. The property is officially closed for environmental remediation. The exclusion zone is enforced by private security contractors who aren't military but might as well be. And the phenomena continues. I know this because I've made it my retirement project to monitor it from a distance. Not physically, I'll never go back there, but through FOIA requests, through academic papers on anomalous geological activity, through amateur radio operators who report strange signals from that region. It's getting worse. The manifestations are more frequent now. The exclusion zone has expanded twice, and there are reports, unconfirmed, unverifiable, but persistent, of similar phenomena appearing at other locations: Nevada, Alaska, remote parts of Montana and Wyoming, as if whatever is happening at the ranch is spreading or waking up. I'm writing this because I'm 62 years old and I have prostate cancer. The doctors give me a year, maybe 2. And I've spent 11 years staying silent, following orders, keeping secrets that were never mine to keep. People need to know. Not everything. I'm not trying to start a panic or expose classified programs. But they need to know that there are places where reality breaks down, where the boundaries between what we understand and what exists beyond our understanding become permeable, where things can come through. The government knows, has known for decades, maybe longer. They monitor it, they study it, they try to contain it. But they don't understand it, can't control it. Can only watch as it grows. And the worst part? We might have made it worse. Every team they sent to the ranch, every sensor array we deployed, every measurement we took, it might have been like shining a light into a dark room, drawing attention, making the things on the other side aware that we're here. Washington was right. We're the anomaly. This place, this reality, belongs to something else. Something that's been here longer than us, and will be here long after we're gone. Something that occasionally notices us the way we might notice insects. And when it notices us, reality bends around its attention. The ranch isn't special. It's just one place where the membrane is thin enough that we can see through it. There are others. Will be more. And each time we investigate, each time we poke at the boundaries with our instruments and our science and our need to understand, we weaken those boundaries a little more. So here's my warning, written by a dying man with nothing left to lose. There are some things that shouldn't be studied, some questions that shouldn't be asked, some places that should be left alone. The ranch is one of them. And if you ever find yourself in northeastern Utah, in the Uinta Basin, near coordinates that I won't specify but that you could probably find if you tried, if you ever see a property with bent fence posts and dead circles in the ground and a feeling that makes your skin crawl for no reason you can name, turn around. Don't investigate. Don't take samples. Don't set up cameras. Just leave. because some boundaries exist for a reason, and on the other side of those boundaries are things that are vast and ancient and utterly indifferent to human life. Things that exist in dimensions we can't perceive and follow rules we can't understand. We went to the ranch to measure anomalies, to document and explain and contain. What we found was proof that we're not alone in the universe, but not in the way anyone hoped. We're not alone because reality is bigger than we know, because there are other configurations of existence, other forms of consciousness, other ways of being that have nothing to do with carbon and oxygen and DNA. And sometimes, in certain places, at certain times, those other realities intersect with ours. The ranch is one of those intersections. A crossing point, a place where the boundaries wear thin and things can pass through. Both ways. I don't know what will happen next, whether the phenomena will stabilize or spread, whether the government's containment efforts will work or fail, whether Washington and the others will recover or continue to slowly change into something that isn't quite human anymore. All I know is that we opened a door that should have stayed closed, and now we're learning to live in a world where that door exists. God help us.